Hello, Chapel High School students. Welcome to Chapel High School, the digital edition. My name is Joe, and I get to lead here at our Norwalk campus. And we are starting a new series today called Like Me. And I would love to start this message with prayer. So let me pray for us. God, we want to learn to see ourselves the way that you see us and to understand the things that you have said about us and what is true and what is not. And Lord, one of the things that can bring us down so easily and so quickly is comparing our lives to others. And so, Lord, I pray that you would help us to guard our hearts, to keep us from doing that, and to trust in what you say about who we are. In Jesus' name. Amen. So like I said, we are starting a new series called Like Me, but before we get into that, I have a very, very special announcement. We are starting something new. This is going to be called Last Sunday, and Last Sunday is going to be for all students at all campuses. We're going to have live worship, really some incredible games. We're going to do some awesome prizes. We're going to have some really relevant messages to what's going on in your life, and it's going to be the last Sunday of every month. Now, there's going to be some more information about what high school ministry at the chapel is going to look like coming up, but this is all I can tell you for right now. So you're going to want to stay connected to our social media accounts on Instagram and here on YouTube, and keep following along to see what we have to say. So let's jump in. First thing, on this message, I want to ask you the question, do you hate it? Don't you hate it when things are unfair? I think about this, like, for example, other people with like great genetics, right? Like people who are just tall, people who are naturally lean or well-built, or they're fast or whatever. It just doesn't seem fair. You know, what about people that are born into rich families? You know, maybe students who they don't have to worry about getting a scholarship because they know that their parents are going to be able to pay for them to go wherever. They got the coolest car out in the school parking lot. Students who don't have to study, right? Maybe you're one of those students, and it just it drives us nuts, right? When we have to study so hard to pull a C or a B, and you don't have to do anything, and you're just super smart, and you just get an A on tests. This happens to me all the time when I'm scrolling through Instagram. I'll be scrolling, totally happy with my life, minding my own business, just looking at memes, and then I see something that like completely deflates me, right? It's somebody I know, somebody who's like my age, my same place in life, and they got this sweet new house, or they got a brand new car. They got, like, for me, it's like if I see somebody with like new shoes, especially like really nice running shoes, I'm like, oh, I got to have those, you know? It could be like a vacation. Like, why do they get to go on such a sweet vacation, you know? I get so jealous. And maybe this happens to you. You're scrolling through Instagram, you find yourself saying like, okay, well, he has the newest whatever. Her life is so much better because she has whatever. Why don't I get to go there, you know, whether it's a vacation or whatever it might be, right? I can go from feeling really good about life to feeling like garbage in about 10 seconds, right? It's just not fair. And you know this already. When we do this, we start to assume other people have the perfect life. And we look at what they put online and we compare our life to someone else's, and we start to think, okay, they look better. Their life looks better. They look better. And then we realize, or we recognize a familiar reality for us, right? Their life is better than my life. And we respond in a few ways. Maybe you respond like this. You are an overachiever. So you see this and you start working really hard to try to keep up with other people in hopes of getting the same results, right? Or maybe you just do nothing. You're like, you are like, I'm never going to be able to achieve that. I'm not going to be as good as they are, so why even try? Or maybe you play it over and over in your minds. I do this one, you know, whether it's anxiety or sadness, jealousy, or motivation to try really hard. It's something, you know, that I just can't get out of my mind. I want my life to look like theirs. I want my Instagram posts to look like theirs. And no matter how we respond, it's always the same result, right? It makes us feel bad. And that's what comparison does. And here's the tricky thing about comparing our lives to someone else's, is that we know that places like social media are designed to show the highlights. They are the highlight reel. They're just the good stuff about people's lives, right? That's why why we do everything to make sure others see the highlight reel of my life. Like, I'm not going to take a selfie when I first get out of bed in the morning and I just look like garbage and I have on like my big thick glasses and what's left of my hair is all a mess. I'm not going to do that, right? You're not going to post about the fight you just got in with your girlfriend on your real Instagram account, at least. But what we do is we take a photo of ourselves, and you might take that photo 30 times just to make sure you got the right lighting, the right angle, the right filter, whatever it is. Or you'll post something and you'll rewrite the caption 30 times just to make sure it's funny. And you do this, right? So we've all perfected the art of projecting the life we want others to think we have, even if it doesn't match the life that we actually have. And here's what's crazy is we forget that everyone else is doing the same thing. They're posting their best life, not their real life, but somehow we believe that their highlights are the whole story. And comparison about this has become so normal that I don't even know if we realize we're doing it anymore. Well, the good news is that what we're going to talk about for the next few minutes will not only to help us to recognize we're doing it, but also to help us understand what to do about it. So, what does the Bible say about social media? Nothing. That's it. Nothing, right? But it does talk a lot about comparison, about comparing ourselves to others, right? The Bible may not say anything about Snapchat or anything about TikTok, but it does say a lot about comparison. So one of the greatest teachers and followers of Jesus was this guy named Paul. He made it his mission to make sure that everyone he met knew about how their lives could be changed forever from following Jesus. And he traveled all over the known world at the time, starting churches in different regions and sharing about Jesus. Paul traveled a lot to maintain the relationships with the churches that he had started. And when Paul wasn't present at these churches, he made it a point to write letters to stay connected. And we have those letters, at least some of them today, in the New Testament. And in these letters, Paul was known for being pretty direct. He didn't beat around the bush. He would call you out. And he was passionate about following Jesus and helping others to do the same. And while everything that Paul did was out of love, it was probably likely sometimes that some people felt that Paul was calling them out in areas where they were messing up. And in response, they did what a lot of us would do. They defended themselves and they lashed out at Paul, trying to bring him down. Have you ever done that? Somebody calls you out on something and you lash out at them, trying to bring them down. So these people began to tear Paul down, and their strategy to make themselves feel better about themselves was to make Paul look worse. It's a lot easier to bring someone else down than to try to rise up. And then they were being immature in this situation. So listen to how Paul responds to these criticisms. He says this, "Oh, don't worry. We wouldn't dare say that as we are." We wouldn't dare say that. We are as wonderful as these other men who tell you how important they are. Talking about these people who are bringing him down. He says, but they are only comparing themselves with each other, using themselves as the standard of measurement. How ignorant. Okay, I couldn't imagine getting a letter like this from the Apostle Paul, right? I think Paul here is using an ancient tool known as sarcasm, because he shot right back at his critics. He wasn't messing around, and in this passage, he's addressing the comparing that's going on among people, and then the struggle that it created as well. So Paul is saying in no uncertain terms that it's absolutely ridiculous to let your behavior and your life be based on a comparison to someone else's behavior or life. And it's even more ridiculous to spend time figuring out how you measure up to people who are just like you in order to make yourself look better. If we were to sum things up, Paul was saying this. He's saying, look, comparing any human to another human is an ignorant idea, and it makes you look stupid. His point was that comparing yourself with others, it was pointless. It's a game you'll never win. I love this quote from Andy Stanley. He says, there's no win in comparison. There's a principle found in the book of Proverbs, a book from the Old Testament, that I think Paul would have known by heart. In fact, I know he would have known this by heart. It says this, above all else, Guard your heart. For everything you do flows from it. And you might be thinking, why do I need to guard my heart? Isn't that what my rib cage is for? No. We're not talking about that heart, right? Because Solomon, the man who wrote down this proverb, was passionate about how important it is to guard our hearts. And your heart is really the center of your will, of your intellect, of your emotions, of who you are. And it's important to guard this. Why? Because what we do always comes from what we believe in our hearts. Our hearts matter because they control everything we say and everything that we do. So we should guard our hearts. We should guard who we are. And one of the quickest ways to destroy our hearts is through what? It's through comparison. You know, I see a post about how great someone else's life is, and we allow it to get to our hearts and to mess with us, and then what we believe about ourselves. And when this happens, we are in danger. It makes us feel worthless. It makes us feel less than, and it's like an attack on the heart that can ultimately mess up your whole life. And that's why we have to get this right. Don't compare your worth with their posts. That's the big line that I want you to remember. Don't compare your worth with their posts. Don't look at someone else and assume that their life is perfect and then conclude that your life is no good just because in that moment your life doesn't look like theirs. Don't make a decision about how you look or how you don't look based on someone else's picture. A picture that was probably taken a bunch of different times, filtered, face-tuned, and edited to make it look that good. I mean, some of you put so much filter on your photos, I wouldn't recognize you in real life. Like, you don't look like that at all. So don't make decisions about your worth based on what you see and what you perceive in the lives of other people through social media. But how exactly do we fight that temptation to allow comparison to rule our lives, to tell us who we are? How do we guard our hearts like Solomon suggested? Well, it may not be easy, but it starts with that word that Solomon used. He used that word guard, right? It's setting some boundaries about what you see and about what you participate in. If something messes with you, if something destroys how you feel or gets to your heart in a bad way, pay attention to that and step away to give yourself a break. You know, I have had to unfollow many Instagram accounts because sometimes I would see things that make me feel worthless, or they would make me feel less than, even though I know that it's not the real story, that there is so much going on there that I don't know about. Maybe it's somebody who's in really great shape, right? And I don't know their genetics. I don't know their story. I don't know if they're getting paid. I don't know if it's photoshopped or if it's edited. I don't know how good of lighting they have, but it would make me feel like, well, I'll never compare. And so maybe for you, you have to do what I did, and that's to set some boundaries by just unfollowing some things. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to guard your Instagram, guard your Snapchat, guard your TikTok, guard your scrolling, right? Guard your thoughts when you're watching the likes on your photos roll in or not roll in, right? Be careful about what you're looking at. I want you to guard your comments. Watch what you say. Guard who you follow. I want you to guard yourself when you interact with others who make your life feel less. Maybe there's some people in your life that I'm not saying be mean to. I'm not saying unfriend, but maybe I'm saying just put some distance or some boundaries up there. And guard who you spend time with about people who constantly complain about their own life. In other words, when you find yourself in a situation, whether it's on social media or in real life, where you're most likely to compare yourself to other people, in those situations, I want you to be on guard. Pay attention. Something is trying to get at your heart, and you need to set a boundary there. Pay attention to what you do when you feel yourself sort of spiraling into that comparison game, right? Maybe you find yourself overachieving and striving to get the attention of other people. Maybe you find yourself so deflated that you wonder, like, why do I even try? Or maybe you find yourself playing those images and those words over and over and over in your head. When those things happen, pay attention, because that's your clue that you're stuck in that comparison game. We guard our hearts by paying attention to what we feel when we're tempted to play that comparison game. And when we get caught in those, what I want you to do is to stop and to ask God for help. And you might be thinking, okay, does God really care about how I feel about an Instagram post? Absolutely. Jesus said that he knows the number of hairs on your head. And for me, that's not that many anymore, okay? But if he knows how many hairs on your head, which to us seems like a pretty arbitrary thing, of course he cares about how you feel and guarding your hearts. So I want you to know that you're not the only one who struggles with comparing your life to someone else. Everybody I know does this. But living a life where you feel less than is not who God created you to be. And it certainly doesn't define your worth. I mean, if you are a follower of Jesus Christ, that says so much about you. That Jesus, who's God, would step out of heaven into our world and give his life for you and for me. That's absolutely incredible. There's no other greater approval that we could possibly ask for. 1 million likes on one of your posts is nothing compared to the God of the universe loving you so much that he gave the ultimate sacrifice for you. So remember, don't compare your worth with their posts. I want you to think about this. What would it look like if you began to guard your heart when it comes to comparing your life to other people? Imagine being able to walk in that confidence about who you are. Imagine being able to accept yourself for who you are, for who God says you are. Imagine how different your life and imagine how different this day would be. So again, don't compare your worth with their posts.